Welcome to Weekends with Whitney. Coming up in today's show, how man's best friend is helping this guy recover from a tragic accident that left physical and mental scars. South Louisiana's newest amazing duo, Triton and Lacy.
Sit.
Then Baton Rouge's fastest rising entrepreneur. An update on Lubricity's Dr. Boyce Clark. It's hard to believe the summer he's already having. Then we break down our defense mechanisms with Dr. Nick. There are more than a dozen we often use, and most are unconsciously. Dr. Nick shows us how to recognize them and why not all of them are bad. But first, few things are more exciting to a 12-year-old boy than getting a new dog. When that dog can literally save your life, the joy is immeasurable. Lacy is a service dog Triton and his mom, Brandy, have dreamed of. She helps combat the nightmares they live with. On the outside, Triton looks like a happy, adventurous 12-year-old.
Lacy. Lacy. Back. Sit.
He rides horses, motorcycles, even bulls.
Come on, get him, Triton. Oh.
But underneath, his body and mind reveal scars of a horrible accident. 3 years ago, Triton tried to set a pile of sticks and debris on fire, holding a cup of gasoline.
The fumes ignited, blew his left leg up across the mid-region and then down the right leg. He had swim shorts on. If he'd had a shirt on, he'd have probably burned to death.
She raced him to Baton Rouge General. Doctors said his burns were deep and going deeper.
The next morning, a surgeon came in and he said, we're either going to have to graft or either infection's going to kill him or we're going to get to a point where we're going to have to amputate. It's burned to his muscles, basically. And so I'm sitting here looking at my 9-year-old and then what do you do? Take him, graft him, do what you have to do.
Triton spent 18 days in pediatric ICU. Luckily, 80% of the skin grafts took. But unfortunately, 3 weeks of pain medication caused liver failure.
To be on that kind of pain medication it's a lot for an adult, much less a child. Burns are so painful and he was so uncomfortable and the grafting and he had so many staples and things in his legs. So I guess it's one of those things where you weigh the risks versus the benefits.
Triton was immediately taken off all pain medication. It was painful for everyone.
To sit there and watch a 9-year-old go through that with no pain medication for 6.5 months, he's the toughest little guy I've ever known.
Now, even a tiny cut can lead to huge problems.
A scratch turns into a septic blood infection. We're constantly fighting infections.
Brandy, a single mother of 3, then had to quit her job. Triton needed care around the clock.
When they tell you have to be home with your son, your son depends on you, you call work and say, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm not coming back in.
Yeah, but it's tough to make ends
meet. Yeah, it is.
Or do you?
No.
Do they ever meet?
We don't.
As Triton's body healed, his mind began to unravel in flashbacks.
The things that he remembers, it's bits and pieces of what he's getting from the flashbacks. He's blocked everything out.
What do you remember about when you got burned?
Really nothing.
I immediately made him an appointment at Shriners because we go to Shriners in Galveston now. And they were able to help.
He was diagnosed with PTSD. Treatment was slow, but steady. Triton went back to school, and Brandy back to work, until the August flood. Their family, like most in Santa Ma, had to evacuate.
So I brought him and all of our livestock and my other 2 children to Lamar-Dixon. And we lived out there for 21 days on the concrete in the open stalls because I wasn't going to take him in a shelter. PTSD, couldn't have done it.
That ordeal instigated other disorders, along with night terrors that average 5 a night.
Because the PTSD is so bad with the ADHD, and then he's also developed impulse control disorder. Because of all of it, they fight each other. So with Triton, there is no small emotion. Everything is very intense, either very scary or I'm very angry. There's nothing in between. And so he has to be supervised pretty much 24/7.
Doctors suggested a service dog could help.
We started off with a pipe dream. I said, I'm gonna get him a service dog. And everybody said, how are you gonna do that? You know, you don't have an income, you can't work, you have 3 kids. And I don't know, but I'm gonna do it.
She started a You Caring page to raise the $5,000 needed for such a service dog.
Literally in 2 nights, half of the money was raised. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Their dream was coming true. LA canine owner Paul LeBlanc told Brandy he'd see to it.
This kid is getting a dog. Like, we're gonna make it happen.
Just 10 days ago, Triton and Brandy met Lacy, a golden lab Paul said would be perfect.
But when it walked in, like, he literally he grabbed her by the face and she just licked him, and he said, Mama, this is my dog. Like, this is my girl.
They trained for 2 days at the LA Canine facility in Maurice. I mean, what did you have to learn?
Basic steps like getting to know her and bonding with her.
The 3rd day, Lacy went home with them. I dropped in just 2 days later. When you first saw Lacy, what did you think?
She's amazing.
They're already inseparable. They swim together, shop together, and they sleep together. Triton's night tremors are already down 70%.
He starts kind of jumping around in his sleep and crying and making noise and talking and stuff. And she just edged closer to him and started nudging her face on his and licking. And I watched him. I tried not to be involved. I tried to see what was going to happen. And he just looked up and he looked around and he saw that everything was okay, and he went right back to sleep. So that's a huge thing for Triton to get even a few hours of sleep for a child that does not sleep at all.
How does she make you feel?
Pretty happy.
Lacy makes the entire family happy. Who's her favorite?
Probably me.
As it should be, right?
Yep.
Yep.
What's your favorite thing about her?
That she's playful. And she'll play all day long.
More than just play, Lacy can sense and smell when something's going wrong.
She will be able to redirect. Like, she'll be able to smell when the cortisol levels come up and get involved and redirect his attention and pull him out of an episode before he gets it, whether it be PTSD or anxiety. She'll be able to alert for potential dangers when his impulse control takes over and he does things without thinking because there's no cause and effect. She'll alert to things like that.
And do things like this. Soon, that'll evolve into more important things, like fetching medicine.
If he forgets to take his medications, you can teach them, at certain times when they hear a buzzer go off, they know to go get your medicines and bring them to you.
That's remarkable.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can teach, and there's a lot of things that she knows already. It's just getting them to do them together.
They're together only because of generous strangers, friends, and organizations like Hudson Helpers and Camp I'm Still Me.
This girl here, she's gonna change Triton's life, and she's gonna help educate other people on what service dogs are able to do. There's no words to describe what it's like to have her here and see Triton be a different little boy and come out of his shell. So Miss Rovelin, Jennifer, Melissa, Kip Coltrane, the Children's Burn Recovery Foundation, Brothers Keepers, all of you, I love you so much. This little girl here, she's our angel. Thank you.
Brandy doesn't know how she'll pay for the extra expenses that come with Lacy. For that, she's hoping for more miracles. And if all goes as planned this summer, in August, these two will hit the books. Do you think you and Lacy may be able to go to school together?
Yep.
Wow, we'll be the coolest kid in school, right?
Yeah.
Triton and Lacy just got back from another 2-day training session. Brandy says the progress and the new skills continue to amaze her. And speaking of amazing, Lubricity's Dr. Boyce Clark. He is already having one red-hot summer. He's about to change a lot more around here than just hair. Lubricity has catapulted to one of the fastest growing hair products in the U.S. It's almost like Dr. Boyce Clark has captured lightning in a bottle.
Nearly all of us have battled frizzy hair, but that does not have to dictate our future anymore.
Lifetime Television has crowned him their summer hair care expert. Starting this Saturday, he'll be on 100 TV stations across the country, showing the world how with his product, folks can say goodbye to frizz forever.
So we are really kind of bracing for that impact because it will be, nationwide coverage at that point.
The ABC hit show Shark Tank has elevated him to their upper tier of guest sharks to compete in their new season.
We may hear at any point to go on media lockdown about it, but if that happens, I guess stay tuned. We may be on the next season. Oh. That would be great.
And Lubricity's now working in tandem with a Manhattan firm that skyrocketed many other beauty products into the stratosphere.
They've launched brands such as Kiehl's, Clairsonic, Burt's Bees. I mean, they're like big time firm, and they are going to be able to take us to the national level of this.
He's also meeting up with top beauty editors.
We go to Cosmo magazine this day and to Allure magazine this day, and I'm thinking, I'm going to these places.
Plans are in the works to get him on Ellen too.
Potentially, that would be certainly the penultimate goal there, would be to be on Ellen, and with her being a Louisiana native as well, that'd be awesome.
There's exciting economic news too for South Louisiana. With production demands soaring, he considered manufacturing in another state, but now he's sold solely on Baton Rouge.
We would design, formulate, produce, manufacture, bottle, fulfill. We would do have a warehouse here and fulfill, so everything would be out of Louisiana. And that would be our goal. We would love to keep it in the state.
Like his product, Dr. Clark has a formula for success, and he's red hot.
It's very cool and very exciting. It's humbling, yes. Yeah.
After a blockbuster spring, they are once again stocked with product. If you need more information, go to lubricitylabs.com. And still ahead, Dr. Nick on nearly a dozen defense mechanisms we often deploy, and why most of the time we don't even know we're doing it. How to break the pattern as Weekends with Whitney continues.
Maggio, the only way to go. Maggio Buick GMC, your satisfaction's our specialty. We really deliver on Falls River, here in New Roads. Small town atmosphere, legendary service for over 60 years. Maggio, the only way to go. The only way to go, that's Maggio.
9-time winner of the prestigious Buick GMC Mark of Excellence Award. Defense mechanisms. We all have them, but you may have no idea how many there are. More than a dozen that can be seen in probably a circle of friends of your own. Dr. Nick joins us this morning with more. I never knew there were so many.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes, and we use them because most of them, well, all of them, they're unconscious. We go back to the days of Freud, psychodynamic theory, and we'll say all these defense mechanisms, or my defenses are up. But we don't realize that they really are real. And probably the one that's most obvious, I think, is denial.
Certainly. And they say that we learn that really in childhood.
Well, yeah, because what a defense mechanism is, basically, it's a way to avoid something that's painful unwanted thoughts, emotions, or behaviors. So we tend to find a way to push them away with a defense, a wall. Like, oh no, I'm not really 80 years old and can't walk. I'll get back to being 65 again. I mean, there are many examples.
Or the scale may say 250, but I look like I'm 180.
Right.
Right.
Right. Or denying that there's a real problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
Let's say that's one too. And then, of course, the other one real quick is rationalization. I think this would fit rationalization.
Oh, yeah.
But I love the line. I think it fits. I'm not an alcoholic, I'm Irish.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when we go into the kind of the intellectual world or the cultural world, well, this is not anything bad. It's kind of a way of rationalizing. But then again, they can flow into each other.
Right.
You know, denying, rationalizing.
Is it always a negative?
No, there are a couple of defense mechanisms, particularly that can be very positive, or actually are positive. Sublimation, which Freud talked a lot about.
Well, now you're going to have to go through sublimation for me.
Sublimation is the most obvious is sexual urges that you don't really want to move on. So you go to play the piano. Or, you know, we'll say, oh, you just need a cold shower.
Okay.
Or I'm going to sublimate it by running or by cooking. It's taking something that we don't want to do, and we do something else. Now, and that can be
constructive
and can be conscious.
Oh,
that can be conscious. We can be actually feeling it and saying, no, I don't want to do that. The other one, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Then compensation is, you know, what is it? I can't cook, but I'll do the dishes.
Right.
I'll compensate for what I don't do well by doing something maybe better.
Right, and that and sublimation are good, healthy examples.
Sure.
There is another denial, which is not in the healthy category, and I've heard this expression a lot, but I don't think I understand it, and it's called projection.
Projection. When we don't want to accept what we're experiencing or feeling, we put it onto someone else.
Give me an example.
Gosh, that's such a racist attitude, when I may not be wanting to look at my racist attitude.
Okay.
Or you're making, how in the world, we see this a lot in politics right now, where Republicans projecting on Democrats, Democrats projecting on Republicans, and we sit back and say, we're both doing it. But we don't want to admit it, so we project. We put it on someone else.
Is it kind of like me think thee protest too much?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that would be a little bit closer to reaction formation, which is really a fascinating one that we don't talk a whole lot about.
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
All right. Well, let me give you a great example, and I'm not knocking preachers, but let's say you've got a pastor that's always preaching against alcohol, and we find out later that he's been drinking every night behind closed doors. Do you hear the reaction formation? I mean, that's the phrase, but it's really me thinketh he protesteth too much.
Yes.
When somebody is putting something down that much, you got to wonder what's going on.
Yeah. Is that something in you that you hate about yourself? Correct.
Yeah. Yes. And
so therefore
but you condemn it. By condemning it, you think you're pushing it away, and which is really kind of starting to get close to disassociation, which is
another one,
and compartmentalization. I mean, they all kind of run together, Whitney, where we just kind of make compartments or dissociate. But one that I think is really interesting is regression. Regression, when we go back to childhood feelings. And let me give you the example that I love to use to people. When families have reunions and they'll go back to their childhood home, they'll often come out saying, gosh, it wasn't right. I feel like I regressed. I feel like I went back to being a kid again. Now, I don't know if that's ever happened to you when you go back to your childhood home.
I think so.
With family.
I'll look at it next time.
Well, what might be interesting is to do what I have suggested to people: don't go back home. Go to a neutral ground, and you'll be less regressive. Like y'all are doing your family get together on a cruise.
Right.
There's a much greater chance that you won't regress because you're on neutral ground.
Now, when people talk about regress, does that mean like, oh, then I cling to my mother, or then I want them to do things for me, or?
Could be that. It could be that.
Or I go into the helpless mode.
It could be that.
Okay. Or what else?
Or we go into a victim mode, or we go into a sibling rivalry mode. You know, when we remember what it was like growing up.
Sure.
But when we're adults, in a neutral setting, we experience being an adult. It's kind of a move back to basically childhood. Fascinating.
Yes.
It's really fascinating.
Do some people ever get stuck there?
I think probably all of us utilize defense mechanisms, but yes, I think we can get stuck there. And again, I use the example of denial. Someone can just live in denial forever.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the way it is. It just won't accept it.
Speaking of acceptance, how can people really take an inward look and say, how am I using that in my life, and how is it not being productive?
That's when, and it's not necessarily having a therapist, but that's we find it best when we're not only going inside internally and thinking about our behaviors, but by having people around us that will call us out. And again, one doesn't have to be framed in psychology to notice that sounds like you're denying it. Or that sounds like you're projecting that on someone else, you know, when I see you doing it. You know, or that seems like, it seems like you're being passive. Another one, real quick, is assertiveness. Believe it or not, that's a kind of a defense. Well, it moves, it's between passive and aggressive. You know, assertiveness is also kind of a little bit more along the lines of aggressive, would be more of the defense. Or passive aggressive.
Oh boy, yeah, and there's a lot of that.
But getting back to your question real quick, it's really having people around and being able to, that's why the segment's important, being able to start thinking, I might be doing that. And not shaming ourselves for it, not judging ourselves for it, but being aware of it. I might be regressing, I might be in denial, I might be rationalizing.
Tell me, there was one that when I was looking through the list that I didn't quite understand. I thought it was interesting, but it was the example was it's the worker who can't stand the boss, really wants a new job, but then is overly nice and pretends like everything's wonderful. What's that called?
Displacement.
Okay, displacement.
I call it sideways, but it's really, the word is displacement. I can't get angry at my boss, so I'll go home and take it out on my wife or the kids.
Or I'll go home and kick the dog.
Or kick the dog. I can't take it out on at work, so I'll give it to the customer service at the store. Or I might get into rage in the car. Displacement's fascinating. It really is. I'm glad you brought it up. It's fascinating because we can catch that.
Yeah.
And I think family members, wives and ought to be very aware of asking it, honey, what's really going on? What can you, and without putting in a threatening situation, that sounds like what else, what am I missing?
Yeah.
You know, because you don't want to take it personally, you want to kind of push back and say, can we talk about that for a minute? That feels like bad day, bad, you know, something happened. And believe it or not, Whitney, the other person might say, yeah, real bad, or something happened, but didn't want to talk about it.
Sure, but that must be horrible. And let's go back to the boss work situation where that person has to kind of stuff that down for 8 or 9 hours a day and can't express, or the feelings can't even emerge, and just the pretending. That just can't be healthy.
How about if we sublimate?
Okay.
How about if we put that anger into something else, into productive work?
Into looking for a new job. That's how I'm thinking. We're going to solve this one. Work at that resume.
Yes, it could be working on the resume. It could be working on the resume, but it's also, again, you see where that ties in though, sublimation?
I do.
We'll put it in something else. And that's not necessarily repressing the feeling of anger. We're just putting it in something else, and we're getting it out in another avenue.
Right, something other than like drinking that's destructive.
Exactly. Or going home and screaming at the kids. Whitney, that, if nothing else from today, I wish people would understand, be careful when you go home in a bad mood because work was hard, because it will come out in a displaced, sideways manner.
Right.
Don't you know it?
To people who don't deserve it.
I've done it. I've done it. Take it out on somebody else and then catch it. Like, wow, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve that.
Right, right. Like, so let's say that it's just been a horrible day at work, and we have to run at the grocery, and the line is long, and the lady's credit card doesn't work, or somebody's, they just, and then you just almost want to have an outburst.
Yes.
And that's...
Yes. It happened to me today when we were
Really?
getting ready. Yes, because I came in with everything going wrong and you weren't ready. And I wanted to scream. And then I thought, why would I get mad at Whitney? It's not her fault that everything went bad this morning.
But it was one more
And
thing.
then right. But you do see where it can just come out.
I do. And you're so sweet because you didn't say a thing to me.
Well, but again, not to say that displacement is great, but we do it with people we're safe with. He doesn't feel safe with his boss, but he feels safe with his wife. I'm not excusing it.
Of course.
Any more than I would excuse me saying to you, "Hey, let's go."
Right.
You know,
But you did say that.
I did.
But that was 10 minutes after you were here, and it was time to giddy up.
Because you always get me out of a bad mood.
Oh, sweet. Well, thank you. Because I was going to say you didn't lash out at me.
No. Well, I think that's growth, Whitney.
Yeah.
Not that neither of us are perfect, but I think we're all trying to grow and catch those moments where it's not really healthy. Let it go.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
You're right. Thanks so much. Let it go.
Another great line. Always, forever. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much. And we'll remember those defense mechanisms. Catch them and
YouTube it, watch it often.
Yeah, but watch it. So now you know. More Weekends with Whitney after this. Atlas Foundation Repair, fixing your foundation problems for more than 30 years while preserving and protecting your trees. Thanks for joining us for Weekends with Whitney. Hope to see you back here again next week. Until then, we leave you with this.
my mind. It was dead on freedom.